Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about this very important visit, which is a 3-day official visit of the foreign minister to China, where most of these foreign ministers of the neighboring countries of Afghanistan will also be there. They'll be attending that very important third meeting, in fact, that is being held now. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, we do understand that there is a lot of problem that is going on out there. Couple of news which are circulating. One is regarding that the most of these government employees will now they've been told to keep beard. Again, talking about the women issues, women rights, or perhaps in particular I'm talking about the schooling of the girls. I mean, that has become an issue again. As far as those working ladies who were there in different departments, that has also become an issue now. So perhaps to sort out this issue, this meeting is really important. But before I, in fact, introduce you to our guests in the program, our production team has prepared a report. Let's watch that first.
Pakistan is assertively and very actively pursuing all the possible avenues of foreign diplomacy in order to tread on the path of geoeconomics. On the other hand, by taking exceptional foreign policy initiatives, especially for Afghanistan, Pakistan is proving to the world that it is the core stakeholder when it comes to regional stability and prosperity. In this regard, at the invitation of State Councillor and Foreign Minister of China, Wang Yi, Foreign Minister Makhdoom Shah Mahmood Qureshi is visiting China to attend the third meeting of foreign ministers of neighbouring countries of Afghanistan, which is going to be held on 30th and 31st March. Besides attending this meeting, the foreign minister will interact with counterparts from participating countries. This meeting will be chaired by Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and the foreign ministers and representatives of Iran, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan will participate. According to the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin, the agenda of this meeting will be to build consensus among the neighbours on the issues of Afghanistan and to discuss the ways to stabilize and support the Afghan people. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson in his briefing informed that State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi will subsequently chair the neighbouring countries of Afghanistan plus Afghanistan Foreign Ministers Dialogue, which will also be attended by Acting Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi of the Afghan interim government. In this dialogue, China and neighbouring countries will try to work out that how Afghan side could resort to build an open and inclusive political structure, follow moderate and prudent domestic and foreign policies, and combat terrorism.
Now to talk about it, we have with us Najm-Us-Saqib Saab, former ambassador, senior diplomat. Sir, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And on Skype, we have with us Lieutenant General retired Raza Muhammad Khan Saab, who's a senior analyst, and Hassan Khan, who's an expert on Afghan affairs. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time also for our program. Now, let me start off from you, Najm-Us-Saqib Saab. Again, the third meeting of the foreign ministers of the neighboring countries of Afghanistan. It's being held in China. And now Pakistan, Iran, Russia, along with the Central Asian states, I mean, their foreign ministers, they have gathered there. Now, first of all, sir, there are a few very legitimate concerns of even of the Western world. Whatever was initially promised, whether you talk about the women's rights, rights regarding their education or as far as work is concerned. And similarly now we've also learnt that the men, they have been told to keep beard. I mean, it's fine, but you can't force. So this kind of, I would say, a very, it really bothers me because this is now 21st century and you can't move on. You can't move in the backward direction. Look where the world is going, and I'm sure the people of Afghanistan, it's been 20, 21 years since they were invaded by the Americans. Sir, those kids who were born then, they're around 20, 21 years old now. And those who are in their teenagers, they are in their mid-30s. The point is that they have gone through a different transformation, whether you talk about everybody's carrying a mobile phone. They are pretty much aware of the phenomena of internet and how to use it. So certainly, sir, I mean, all those 20, 21 years gone and waste in vain.
Thank you, Faisal. If you don't want to see a situation happening, you will make it even more difficult. And in this aspect, if you see since August last year, ever since Taliban have come to power, we have seen that the Western conditionalities are, not only changing its shape, but getting stricter and stricter. And why is that? if it was up to you and I think it's very easy to understand the Afghan culture, that beard has got nothing to do with Islam as such, because in Afghanistan it is not the religion, because as you know, as all of us we know,
more of the cultural
that
thing.
it's the culture. And secondly, talking about girls and going to schools and universities and all that, this is one issue which Afghanistan has faced for years. The real issue is, the real problem is that a faction, a group called Taliban, they have come to power in Kabul. The Western countries, the European Union, even China, Russia, Pakistan, Iran, they don't know what to do with this. Now this is a fait accompli. The problems which were there ever since they have come to power, they are still there. And this third meeting, which is going to be convened tomorrow, and our foreign minister is there, foreign secretary is there. The issues are the same. Number one, what is going to happen to these Taliban, government as such? Are we going to recognize that? Would there be an actual regional consensus so that this particular animal is dealt with properly, either this way or that way? Secondly, that there has to be a regional approach, and this has been said by all the related concerned countries ever since. The idea was in August, if you go back, the idea was that what if the United States of America and the European Union, they do not recognize Taliban, do we have an option? This was the question in August. The same question is looming large even now, and unfortunately, unlike the 90s, there is no country as we speak, including Pakistan, Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia, which has recognized the government in Kabul. Now, this is in the heart of the problem. The related issues, for instance, are also the same. The connectivity, the economic development, not only of Afghanistan, but Pakistan and other countries.
Exactly, the entire region.
Regional stability, it is still there. Peace in Afghanistan, peace in Pakistan depends on peace in Afghanistan. It is still there. What I'm saying is that all those issues, internally and externally, which Taliban and the 40 million people of Afghanistan were facing in August, they are still there. Is it a hopeless situation? I don't think so. As long as all these troikas and all these countries, they keep on meeting, they keep on, rubbing into this, that we need to find some kind of a solution. Whether they find a solution or not, this is the third meeting, as you just informed all of us. What happened in the first one? Is it the third one? Is it the last one? I don't think so. The point to understand is that if there is an issue, international issue of such magnitude, you need to bear with it. You can't just have, even in human relations, Faisal, if there is a problem between us, you have a different point of view, I have my own. Now, we need a mediator. We go to the court. In this case, the United Nations has offered its own, lukewarm kind of solution, that okay, we are ready to deal with the people of Afghanistan, but not the Taliban. The West has also taken this stance. Pakistan wants everything good happening to Afghanistan. Mind you, Pakistan is not a province, Afghanistan is not a province of Pakistan. Afghanistan is an independent sovereign country.
Correct.
We are interested because 3 million refugees and all the pilferage of this problem which we have been facing as a nation, our army, our civilian organizations, our people. We do not want any such thing happening again, number one. Number two, that all the energy related corridors, as far as Pakistan's economic interest is concerned, somehow you talk about Tapi, you talk about Kasa, you talk about any other thing, you will see that Afghanistan is in the nucleus of this. Why? Because it's a strategically important area. Pakistan is in a fix at the moment. Pakistan wants to help, but there aren't any, you can say, positive vibes coming from, even from the contiguous states.
But the best up, if you remember, when the former DGI General Faiz visited Afghanistan, and that was perhaps right after the fall of Kabul, perhaps it was on 15th of August, if I'm not wrong. And right after that, there was this very short statement when somebody asked him that, what's going on? And he said, everything is going to be fine, everything is under control. So that impression we all got, perhaps seemed that Pakistan has got a lot to do with that, and Pakistan can most likely sort out the issues.
There can be two options, Faisal. You need to have one of the two actually happening, practically exercising. Number one, the regional countries reach a consensus what to do with Taliban. This is one. Number two, West, led by the United States of America, they decide that, okay, let us accept the reality. Now, all the problems will keep on happening, even, increasing in number. As far as these problems are concerned, that university, girl students, human rights, etc., even if by a stroke of miracle, Taliban are able to satisfy the West question, there will be another list of things. Why? Because the 20 years experience in Afghanistan, America will take a little time to get out of that, so to speak, the defeat, or some kind of taken aback, some kind of a happening which was not calculated at that time. Now you, as a superpower, I mean, how can you see all this happening? So I am amazed at this, regional and international situation in which, in front of our eyes, something is happening like Russia attacking Ukraine, and everyone is, calculating pros and cons, the economic, the political, the etc. For Pakistan, it is not an issue which can be just kept aside or brushed under the carpet. It is an issue which is alive, which directly relates to the stability and peace in my country, in your country. So we have to be important. We have to be forceful, and we have to be ever cognizant of the fact that whatever is happening in Afghanistan, we must be there, and that is why Shah Mahmood Qureshi is there, and he is going to, I think, when he comes back on Thursday, maybe there is some development on the peace and stability,
especially when we talk about the recent OIC summit that was held in Islamabad in the previous week. I think that is also very important, because perhaps on the sidelines of that OIC summit, a lot was going on also. Let me also bring in General Raza Muhammad Khan Sahab. General Sahab, we have had so many talk shows on this very important issue of Afghanistan, but now it seems that the arbitration isn't working. We all got to know that this version of Taliban is 2.0, if you remember, that they are different than the previous regime. This is the next generation, and they think differently. But sir, it seems that no, their thinking is pretty much the same. Issues still remain there, and certain issues that can be sorted out are just being not taken care of because of the this rift between the mindset of the Taliban and the Western world, sir. Because at the end of the day, we all do understand who creates the narratives and who builds up the opinions also among the masses. Your take, sir, General Sahab.
Okay, Bismillah. First of all, I think we all need to understand, and we need to be clear that the present interim constitution of Afghanistan is Sharia, and this is their declared stance that they will implement Sharia no matter what the cost. And therefore, you see some of the measures being taken there.
General Sahab, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, sir, but your connection isn't clear. I would just request my production team to get back to you, sir, so that we have a,
right.
It's not audible to me, unfortunately, sir. I'll just move on to Hassan Khan Sahab. Hassan Sahab, if I may ask you to throw light on the same point, sir. Hassan Khan Sahab.
Yeah, I'm listening to you. I think my audio is clear.
Hassan Sahab, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Sir, I can't hear you actually, unfortunately. There's some problem. Hello?
No, Yes, I am hearing you, Faisal. I think here the audio.
Yeah, now you're audible, sir. I think there was some problem. But if I may ask you, sir, that since you have been covering the Afghan issue for such a long time, and you've been there so many times, attended so many meetings there, met so many senior leaders of the previous regime and even this one also. Now, what seems to be the bone of contention? I mean, the real areas where we need to focus.
I think, Faisal, I think this is a very crucial
Okay.
point, what you are saying, that what are the areas in the international community need to focus here in Afghanistan. Currently, Faisal, I think the situation in Afghanistan is very fluid from all aspects. Though the world is appreciating, and even the Pakistan is also appreciating the level of security being carried out by the Taliban administration. However, as far the human security is concerned, it's not only the bullet and the guns that are killing the human, but it is the poverty, it is the illiteracy, and I think it is the diseases. At the moment, Afghans are suffering. They have been through the war for almost 4 decades. So I think this is the responsibility of the international community. You rightly pointed it out earlier that the US and the world, especially the European coalition, they fought for more than 2 decades, and almost I think they have they used the most lethal weaponry in Afghanistan, even up to we call it the mother of all bombs. They have destroyed not only the infrastructure, but they even destroyed what we call it the human communities. They bombed the wedding procession, they bombed the religious processions, and now Afghanistan is in total disarray. As far as Afghan Taliban are concerned, I think leaving everything to the Afghan Taliban will not be a right decision. At the moment, the West and the European countries and the US, they are more focused on Ukraine. They are least focused on Afghanistan. Afghanistan is no more on the radar of the US or the European countries. But at the moment, I think Afghans are suffering a lot. So now this is the responsibility, I can say, of the regional countries not to allow Afghanistan descend into chaos again. Because in that scenario, if God forbid, Afghanistan become again an internal conflict or a chaos is there, so it will directly impact the regional countries, particularly Pakistan, Iran, and the Central Asian republics. So my point is, ignoring Afghanistan at this moment, just for the sake of what we call it, that you have been, you have not achieved what you want to achieve while there for 2 decades. So I think taking revenge from the people of Afghanistan, it will be too much, and I think it is already they have faced a lot of run for facing the two superpowers. First, it was the Soviet Union, and later on, it was the US and the international coalition. So, at the moment, I think this is the right time, and already the regional countries are gathered in China. They will be definitely talking about engaging not only the Taliban, but how to reach out to the people of Afghanistan. And I think if we, I'm not talking of recognizing the Taliban administration. Maybe Taliban are not behaving the way which they should, or either the world expect them to behave. Because definitely the current attitude for me of the Taliban leadership is a tribal arrogance. Instead of communicating with the world, instead of forthcoming and negotiating and accepting the world's most decent demands, like, look, they spoil a very, I think, a golden opportunity by not letting the girls enter the school. And already they promised months before, when they were there in August, and they said that in March 23rd, we will allow the senior girls to go to school. And unfortunately, when that day come, again, Afghan Taliban were received in a more negative way by the international community. When they stopped girls from going to school on a very flimsy ground, like we are ensuring the Islamic code of conduct, we are ensuring the way the Afghan culture is. I don't know where in Islam, in these 40 plus countries, where the Sharia is barring the girls or women from getting education, from working and earning themselves, etc. Where in Afghan culture, I think there are more Afghan, if I call the Pashtun in Pakistan. There's more than almost 60 million, close to 60 million Pashtun in Pakistan. They have almost the same culture. They speak the same language. But here the girls are working. The girls are going to school. Yesterday in this Islamabad, Faisal, you saw on the Srinagar highway, most of the teachers from religious seminaries, most of the students from the religious seminaries, from those religious schools from where majority of the Taliban leadership studied and they got education in Pakistan, they were here and they were protesting, and there were girls and there were women on the stage, and I think nobody bothered that why women are here and why women are speaking to them. So I think at least they have to open up. Definitely we are accusing the world. Definitely we are accusing the attitude of the West and the US, the way they are dealing with the Afghan issue. But I think we have also to tell the Afghan Taliban that they have to take a burden of it. The reason is at least they must change their attitude, not to the world, at least to the Afghan people. So I think that's the reason that at the moment, all the neighbors of Afghanistan, including the guests like the Indonesian and the Qataris, they are gathered in China, and definitely they will be talking about, because Pakistan's demand is, or Pakistan's position is that Pakistan do not want Afghans to be left or to be isolated, because in that case, if it again descend into chaos, so I think Pakistan will be a country which will face the major brunt again. Already Pakistan suffered a lot for more than 4 decades. So I think Pakistan has this understanding and this realization that what come may, Pakistan has to work and get the world sensitized over the Afghan current situation, which is extremely fluid at the moment.
That is very understandable. Now, General Saab, is it the reluctancy, is it the rigidity, or perhaps the arrogance of the Taliban, or is it because the Western world, in particular United States of America, isn't showing any interest? Because as far as the news about Afghanistan is concerned, sir, that is at the back burner. The moment I switch on any Western channel, the only news which I see is about the Ukrainian war. That's it. Sir.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can you hear me now?
It's perfectly fine.
Okay, so as I was saying, the Taliban have come to power on the basis of implementation of Sharia, and most of the actions which they are taking now are related to that, whether the West or whether we or anyone else likes it or does not like it. We know that they are prepared to pay a price for that, and that should be, I think, clear to everybody. And from that flows out, all that criticism about allowing and not allowing girls to go to school. Now, if you look at what has happened last week or this week in Afghanistan, is that girls' primary schools have been allowed and opened. And they don't bother if there is single gender or mixed gender education or co-education there. But senior girls' schools and colleges have not been allowed temporarily because even previously they had declared that there would be segregation of genders, that they would discourage co-education in the schools and the colleges and even in the universities. I think in many areas of Pakistan also that gender segregation is there. Many a time we have seen, in the villages and far-flung places, in the government school and even in the private schools, where girls sit on one side and boys sit on the other side. In some schools, there is even a screen. In other schools, girls are made to sit in the front rows and boys are made to sit in the rear rows. So, I think that is that kind of an issue there, that they were not prepared, to start the classes, senior classes of girls. And I think as soon as they find a solution to this issue, I think this matter will be resolved. And they have not said that they would stop the education of girls in Afghanistan. It should be, I think, very clear to us. Secondly, uh, right now there are some very positive, vibes emanating from Afghanistan. If you look at their media, then they're talking of, continuous supply of LPG from Russia. They're talking of the prices of petrol going down because they're getting, gas and oil from Russia and Central Asian republics. The Afghani itself is stabilizing. Uh, there, in yesterday's, Tolo news, there was the news that they have earned 8 billion Afghanis from mining alone in the last 1 or 2 months. That work is resuming on three major dams in Afghanistan, and so on and so forth. So I think they are now trying to stand on their own feet, regardless of whether Western support comes to them or recognition comes to them or it does not. Of course, it will be in their interest that they're recognized and they get their money back. Uh, they only about, I think, a month back, there were news that they have prepared their own budget, out of their own resources, minus their money which has been frozen by the United States and the West. As we also said, the Afghanistan is an independent country with its own independent foreign and domestic policies. And I think for us or for anyone else to tell them how to run their country, I think I don't know if it is appropriate or not, because they understand, how they are going to run their countries, and they know that if there will be a cost, and if they're prepared, to bear that cost, then I think whether we should press them too hard on that, like the West is doing, that can be questions. Similarly, we must know that the present meeting in China, that is Pakistani proposal, where a regional solution is part of Pakistan's foreign policy, and we have declared as a stable, united, friendly, and now a connected Pakistan. And when we are talking of a connected, we are talking of extension of the CPEC towards Afghanistan and beyond. And I think the Chinese State Council and Foreign Minister is there to make that offer to the government of Afghanistan. And if that happens, I think it is going to serve the interest of all the regional countries, particularly Afghanistan and
All right,
Pakistan and
Jalsa.
China, and everyone else. So I think all is not lost in Afghanistan. I think while the criticism of women's rights and gender equality by the West is genuine, but I think more important is the release of their funds so that the Afghan government is stabilized, so that they are enabled to pay
So
their
now
armed
exactly
forces.
that holds the key. I mean, you just
Security
talked
forces.
about the funds. I mean, whether it's $10 billion that has been frozen by the Americans, but say at the end of the day, $10 billion isn't a huge sum for countries like China. They can always support in whatever way. Russia is obviously, Basit, involved in the Ukraine war. A lot of losses have been reported. But still, as far as fuel is concerned, on energy resources, they can do that on deferred payments. So there are multiple options for them also. Regional countries really want peace and stability in Afghanistan so that, trade could be done. Connectivity you were talking about earlier, that is also very important. But sir, whatever mess was created by the West, destruction, invasion of Afghanistan, and just left them, and we all knew this was going to happen, and that happened. Now, the regional countries which had nothing to do with that kind of a chaos in Afghanistan eventually are the solution providers. Sir, forget about the issues regarding the girls' education or the women's rights for the moment. Let's talk about the economic factor. Do you think, sir, these regional countries, these foreign ministers who are present in China at the moment, these regional countries can perhaps provide the basic support when it comes to food or medical aid or otherwise? Do you think they are in a condition, or do you think they have the capacity to basically look after the Afghan affairs, sir, in the absence of the Western world?
First of all,
This
I
question
must,
is to me.
quote that English phrase that you can bring a horse to the stream, but you cannot make it drink. So this is one as far as Taliban are concerned. Secondly, of course, you are very right in saying and observing that China and Russia or even Pakistan, Iran, if they want, $10 billion is not a big amount. It's not related to the money aspect alone. It is the, the politics, the real politique as such. We know what are the problems. America knows what are the issues. After all, they stayed there for 20 years and they must have studied the culture and the people of Afghanistan and various factions and jirga system and all that.
They know everything, don't want to
They know everything. So if we are telling them that there is a humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, people of Afghanistan are like this and people of Afghanistan are like that, they might be laughing at us, The real issue is not the understanding of Afghan people. The real issue is not that whatever happened in Afghanistan and has been happening in Afghanistan is not fair. It's not the issue anymore. The issue is that all of us know what the issues are, number one. Number two, how to get into that argument, through to the West, especially the United States of America and the European Union and the big country, the affluent countries. Your argument is not being bought by them. Your argument on humanitarian crisis, yes, they reacted, they responded, and they responded well. But they're not going to go further than that. Why? Because a decision has already been taken. The decision about Afghanistan, about the shifting of terrorism from Afghanistan to the Sahel countries, to Iraq again, the ISIS, the IS, the Al-Qaeda, etc., has already been taken. The decision about the future of Taliban has already been taken. Now, how can you give your arguments, no matter how solid they are, if they're not ready to listen? Number two, if Pakistan is the most important country in this region as far as Afghanistan is concerned, do you think that Pakistan right now in a position to talk to the United States of America on any issue, let alone Afghanistan? So we are seeing a kind of a deadlock, a dead end. I think there is a third way to go about Afghanistan problem. By the way, another angle has been added into it, Pakistan, Afghanistan. If you had mentioned about the OIC recently concluded conference, the 48th session of foreign ministers.
And prior to that, we had a particular one on Afghan issue.
The Afghani interim foreign minister, Mr. Muttaqi, did not attend this conference. So what I see here,
he had reservations because of the last one.
What I see here is that there are some additional, rifts or some kind of frictions between Pakistan and the Taliban government. Now, under the circumstances, when the American doors are closed for any negotiation or for any talks, you have your bilateral issues with the United States of America, right from saying absolutely not to not attending the Summit of Democracies, to going to the Beijing to attend a mega event which was diplomatically boycotted by the United States, and after that you're going to Moscow. Yes, you're going to Moscow and meeting President Putin at the very, very sensitive moment of the contemporary history. Now, all these indications, and plus you're saying that you're not going to become a part of any bloc, which slightly the Western objective observers are saying here a kind of contradiction, that you are giving the practical proofs of going towards China, going towards Russia, drifting away from America, and you are saying that you are not going to become a part of any bloc. There is a contradiction, there is a paradox. Now, under this bilateral trajectory circumstances, Pakistan and US, how can you ask any diplomat for that matter to initiate a talk? So I think the third way, the roundabout way, would be that if Pakistan actually wants to have a proper solution of the issue, peace and stability in Afghanistan, and the energy corridors and the economic connectivity, if you don't have a regional consensus very soon, and it has to be very soon, if the West is adamant not to move an inch towards that, I think there is a roundabout way to go about that, and that is, if we say that Pakistan is the most affected country after Afghanistan as far as the western borders and the region is concerned, we need to find ways to get to the negotiating table with the United States bilaterally. There are certain serious issues facing Pakistan-United States relations, and especially this statement coming from Islamabad against the European Union and saying that we are not slaves, and they are very bold and very, strong statements. And if Pakistan says that we don't want anyone, it means that you are on your own. Are you on your own? Can you actually hold on to your feet and properly run the economy of your own country to begin with? So, coming back to this, hope is still there. The regional consensus, hope is there. By the way, Taliban government has already started.
But do we have a policy?
Sorry?
Do we have a policy?
About
the overall problem with the...
Yes, we have. Look, Pakistan has not acknowledged the Taliban government yet. It's a part of the policy. We are not going to be, singled out, on that aspect. Pakistan is not going to not only acknowledge the Taliban government, but look for a regional consensus. That is our policy. And that was stated right after Taliban came, in August. So what I see here is that it will take time, but finally diplomacy will prevail, provided Pakistan sees its own position vis-a-vis the West, particularly the United States, the European Union, and be patient and wise. Do not state, do not give
emotional statements.
Yeah.
There you go. Jal Saab, before I come to you, sir, let me put this question to Hassan Khan. Hassan, how important do you see the role of the West as far as Afghanistan is concerned? Because I think ever since the fall of Kabul, regional countries, they have done a lot. I mean, whether you talk about countries even in the Middle East, Qatar or otherwise, even UAE, and you talk about Turkey, you talk about Iran, Pakistan, so much has been going on. When we used to look at the Indian media in those times, I mean, the Indians were saying as if Pakistan has an absolute control over Afghanistan, and that is a problem perhaps for the Indians. But whatever we witnessed after that, so many attacks are on our military checkpoints, and perhaps so many Jawans along with officers, they were martyred. And we all know what was happening in Balochistan. I mean, pinpoint targets were there. Somebody was financing, somebody was supporting, and eventually Al-Qaeda and TTP ended up, and even the Balochistan Liberation Army, they ended up accepting for whatever happened in Pakistan. So looking at this now, do you think Afghanistan practically is controlled by the Taliban, or they just have the control on papers and in reality things are different? There are so many other factions, so many other non-state actors, they're still moving around freely in Afghanistan, and that is perhaps beyond the control of the Afghan regime, of the Taliban. Can you unmute Hassan Khan Sahab, your...
Yeah,
Yes.
you got it right. Yeah,
There you go.
sorry. I'm sorry, I got it muted. Yeah, these are there are about Pakistan. I think vis-a-vis Afghanistan, there are more perception than the reality. And I think your interjection while when the His Excellency Najm-Us-Saqib Sahab, when he was speaking, your interjection was, do we have an Afghan policy? And I think this is a crucial question. Unfortunately, and that's the reason that we failed to convince the world and even our own people what we want in Afghanistan, what type of Afghanistan Pakistan wants. I think there are more rhetoric than facts than reality. And this is mainly because Pakistan has never brought the Afghan policy into the public domain. We never discussed the Afghan policy. Look, on August 15, such a tectonic, I think, impact happened in Afghanistan. But I think, as far I'm concerned, and definitely you will bear me out, that not for a single day the Afghan issue was taken up in our national parliament. I don't know why. Neither we talk about it at public forums like various think tank, etc. All the things are very closed door and it's a close knitted one. So that's the reason that not only because first, Faisal, look, we have the diplomats, we have the retired officers from the military and from the bureaucracy, we have the media people. So the international community largely, yes, no doubt they interact on a first take with the government official, but largely to get more on ground information. They try to interact, even those international communities stationed in Islamabad, they try to interact with the media persons, with the retired, with the civil society activists, with the retired people. So once your own people are not convinced, Faisal, that what's our government policy vis-a-vis Afghanistan, what we want there, so definitely the international community will also get confused messages and confused signal. So that's the reason. Definitely your first questions coming, the responsibility of the West, no doubt it is the West, the two wars. I will divide the conflict in Afghanistan in two phases, though we can divide it in three. First is the Soviet invasion, then the Mujahideen and the Taliban era, and then the Western invasion. It's not only the American, it was a Western international coalition of almost 50 countries who were using all their, what we call it, the human killing machines from around the world. They were gathered in Afghanistan and they used all the lethal gadgets in Afghanistan. And I think that destroyed not only the infrastructures, but the human communities and the localities also. So definitely West has to take on the responsibility. The US has to take on the responsibility. The world power, because Afghanistan was, it was a ground for the international proxies for more than 4 decades. So I think it is no doubt, it is the responsibility of Afghan to take care of their own house. But I think definitely it is the responsibility of the international community and the world powers who used Afghanistan as a ground for their proxies. Soviet was the American, and the entire West was here to defeat the Soviet, what you call the Soviet bear. And then you saw when the Americans were there, again there were many who tried to get the US engaged and make it bleed in Afghanistan. So I think now it is the time for this, what we call it a civilized, developed world to come forward instead of just locking the door and leaving
The only
Afghanistan
word that pops up in my mind right now is hope. Hope is a good thing, no doubt. But sometimes, when you sort of have this idea in your mind that everything is going to be sorted out. Yes, that's a very positive mindset, but in reality, things are very different. Jalal Saab, last couple of minutes, sir, I'm so sorry.
Can I take 30 seconds before you
So
go to
quick
Jalal Saab?
comment and then I'll go to Jalal Saab.
As far as Pakistan's foreign policy is concerned, I think for the last 20 years, when the Americans were there in Afghanistan, there was one statement. We need an Afghan-owned, Afghan-led, broad-based government. And second thing was that there is not going to be any military solution of Afghanistan. There has to be a political solution. And fortunately for us Pakistanis, even the Americans had to actually go that way, that it has to be there has to be a political solution. To say that Pakistan doesn't have a policy, foreign policy about Afghanistan, I think it is not a correct statement. Pakistan had a policy, Pakistan has a policy, and Pakistan will have. How can you not have policy about Afghanistan, the most important aspect after Kashmir in your foreign policy?
Absolutely. General Saab, your takes are on the same point. I think it's something very important. Afghan policy during the current circumstances, is it a workable solution? Is it the right remedy, sir? Or it should be Afghan-led? If it is Afghan-led, let the Taliban decide what they want to do with their own country, sir. Who are we to interfere? It's a sovereign state at the end of the day.
Okay, so I think I also want to reinforce what the ambassador said, that we have always had a very well thought out policy on Afghanistan, which I mentioned at the beginning, and very briefly it was to have a stable, united, friendly, prosperous, and then I added one more sentence to that, connected Afghanistan, because that is in everybody's interest. The Afghan policy has been very clearly mentioned in the new national security policy. It was discussed, I think, in a number of forums. I think in every think tank in Islamabad and I think outside. And then, a few paragraphs were included about our foreign policy there. And I think it is mainly based on what I've been saying. That is one. The second is, I think, the US policy on Afghanistan, the present policy is extremely short-sighted. And the European countries and the West have no option but to actually follow that policy. Should we be actually now talking to the US to change their policy? I don't think so. I think they should understand it themselves, that does the present US policy serve their interest in Afghanistan or elsewhere or not? I think it does not serve their long-term interest in Afghanistan. And therefore, I think they need to balance their policy in Afghanistan. They need to, stop dictating to the present Afghan government, because they are not going to listen to them. And the major reason for that is that the United States or Europe now does not have any leverage left on them, because they've already confiscated their money, and they're not prepared to return that money. For Pakistan, I think the most important thing is to ensure that stability of regime is ensured in Afghanistan, and once that stability of government or regime is ensured, we can have certainty that at least cross-border terrorism will not emanate from Afghanistan, Pakistan. And once the Afghanistan government is stabilized, recognized or not recognized, I think that will be in the interest of Pakistan as well as Afghanistan. And I think that is what we should work for.
All right, sir. Thank you very much, General Saab. Hassan Khan, thank you very much for your time as well. And Basit, thank you so much, sir, for your presence. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you, inshallah, tomorrow at 8:05 p.m. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.